Welcome again to a discussion on the baseball card companies. Today we're going to be discussing classic best, as well as Stadium Club baseball cards. Classic cards, created back in 1987, were neither an oddball or mainstream collectible. And it did kind of cover a short period of time from 1987 to 1993. And it started with a card trivial board game. And that board game included cards. And that card game was very successful, especially in the kind of the popular era of card collection. And the price went up very rapidly, and people were sometimes frustrated that they didn't buy it early on because the cost of some of these cards, and certainly the game, were somewhat pricey come around 1990 and beyond. So Classic was so successful with this cards and the distribution that they just kind of built on that and created several sets, not just a single set per year, but several sets, as you see in the 1990 blister pack availability of their cards, as well as 3 different sets in 1991, as well as a new card game. And it continued to create these sets as of 1993. So the classic trivial baseball cards were 1987 by Game Time Limited produced a Major League Baseball board game. And these board games were basically, we answered trivia questions, and the premier edition contained 100 cards. And part of its success and kind of what its rally player was a player that is familiar to many people, and that was Bo Jackson. And the intent of the card company, of course, was take advantage of the 1980s baseball card boom that was kind of reaching a pinnacle as it got closer to the 90s. So their key card in that original inaugural set was Bo Jackson rookie wearing an Auburn football uniform and swinging a baseball bat. So it became very popular, so popular, in fact, that Classic included an additional 6 cards in its sets throughout the whole time that sets of Classic were available. On the back of each card were the player's stats and 4 trivial questions. New editions and update sets were produced throughout the 90s, and they were contained in the blister packs, which you have seen on a previous slide. So these were the cards, and they were very colorful, and each year and each set had a different coloring. Red in the case of this particular 1990s, and then 1991, very colorful in terms of blue and pink and oranges and so forth. And then they came out with, in the 90s, a first round draft pick set. So all the players that were picked in the first round were included in this set. And there was so much speculation, and there was so much at stake that people felt they could make profits off of getting rookie cards. And the earlier the rookie card, the more valuable it was. And the idea was that the first rookie card, well, what an idea that you could get the card even before they made it to the majors and was in a set. So this first draft picks was something that people speculated in purchasing. And the first draft pick that particular year was Chipper Jones, who turned out to be quite a ball player. However, it still worked out that the cards that were in the more traditional sets were much more value. Now, the argument about purchasing or investing in Classic was that the feeling that this particular card company wasn't going to minimize its production of cards. If it had a great deal of attention to any particular set or card, they could produce more and more of the cards at any time. So the value could continue to go down as they basically produce more. As we know, this turned out to be not necessarily true in terms of producing more, but they produced so many at the beginning that the cards really never elevated very much in their value to the collector population. So there were the cards in 1987, which is its inaugural set. It had that Bo Jackson, very, very popular. And then it had, again, additional sets that came out in different colors in the 90s. A particular player in that 90s set was Juan Gonzalez. That was a rookie card, but they were competing with the standard sets that were available. And even though it was a rookie card, it certainly never gained the popularity of cards in the usual sets. A very kind of neat card that was contained in the 90s set was a Nolan Ryan Bo. Nolan Ryan knows Bo, where he's holding that Auburn card up for the 1990 photograph. And then you certainly had a lot of interest not only in Bo, but in another player that was a dual sports person, and that was Deion Primetime Sanders. And many of the cards that appeared in that 91 set were high profile players, but unfortunately they had rookie cards in previous years and previous sets. So one thing that Classic did, remember where they did have that classic first draft pick, they actually developed total sets around the draft picks and players prior to making the majors. And this was pure speculation on the part of people who are trying to get the earliest card. You had a whole bevy of new players and potential players and prospects and so forth. So they produced lots of cards, and many of these players never really made it past the early minor league Division II, Division III, or what have you. But there were some players that seemed like it would be a good bet that they would do well. One of those was Manny Ramirez. So you have, photos of him before he even was drafted by a major league team. And then a very popular player whose mainstream cards did very well was Derek Jeter. And this was even earlier than any rookie that came out when he was in high school. And so people speculated on that. And there was an interesting card that was Barry Bonds Jr. So we know Barry Bonds became a super home run hitter and popular for a long period of time. And he was the son of Bobby Bonds, who was a professional baseball player that was well known. And now you have the grandson or the son of Barry Bonds Jr. Unfortunately, again, he never made it really past the early levels of the minor league, and we heard from him no more. Another son of a fairly well-known baseball player was Ryan Lazinski. He was the son of Greg Lazinski, a star for the Philadelphia Phillies. And then there were many, many players. Probably the one that had most potential but never really produced, and that was the pitcher Brian Taylor. When we talk about prospects and draft picks and rookies, we'll go into great detail about those ones who were speculated and flopped, and those ones who basically did well and have kind of increased their value in terms of the card collector investments. So not a whole lot to say about Classic. There are a few cards that would be of value, and certainly if they're graded, and certainly the Bo Jackson inaugural card in 1987, as well as kind of the Nolan Ryan knows Bo and some of the other cards may have some value, but they never really kind of escalated to the level of that early Classic game. So now we're going to look at not an individual company in the sense it stands by itself, but it was a card that was produced by Topps in answer to the high-end releases that were coming out at the time. And so many cards were kind of upgrading, the Fleer Ultra and the Score Select, and all these cards were upping. And so now Topps was going to come out with a premier set in 1991. And this particular set still stands as one of the most aesthetically pleasing card sets in the history of baseball cards. And so it was really the photography and the quality of the card that kind of really made this Topps Stadium Club first edition stand out. It made its debut in 1991, and it kind of held, in terms of producing cards, till around 2003. The period was a pause in between 2003, and then they revived it in 2013, and still currently for sale as Topps Stadium Club, a high quality card. And in fact, in 2019, they actually have produced cards that are chrome. They released this in 2019. The benefit of this particular card versus other cards on the market at the time, it was acclaimed for its simple, straightforward, and sleek design, as we see here in this Roger Clemens. And one of the things is that it was called a full bleed photo, or Kodak photo, making the card borderless. So most cards that you see have borders that are around it. This has no borders. And it also has a very glossy finish, UV coating on both sides, the back and the front, as well as being contained in a gold foil pack. On the back, there was a high quality photograph, as well as on the front. And just like Upper Deck, that was kind of started this in the 1989, the card contained a hologram, which was meant to stop counterfeiting of the card. So people couldn't reproduce the card due to the hologram. Topps Stadium Club, simple design with full bleed photos, was not only good because of the photos, but the actual photography itself, the action shots. And the action shots contain the raw emotions of the baseball players, which was kind of positive in terms of the collector's point of view. The suggested retail price when the card was first introduced, remember that Upper Deck started out as the most expensive per pack at $1, and now we have the Top Stadium Club coming out, suggested retail price of $1.25, and it was really kind of hard to collect because it was collected, it was distributed in 2 series. So you had to kind of really make sure you got all the cards you want to collate and make a collection in the first series. And then you had to go back and make sure you get all the cards in the second series. And what happened, the card was so successful and so hard to get that the 19 and 1992 packs were costing as much as $5 or more, not in terms of the stores, the regular big box stores, but in terms of the hobby shops would buy up all the cards and then they would resell them for this exorbitant price, and people would pay for it, and even sometimes pay more. And people were waiting lines, calling stores in advance. So there's a real rush to see if you could get all of the cards and create your own 600 card collection. So that, as I said, the cards paused from 2003 on, and then 2013-14 started up again. And by the time we're here now, 2022, that they were pre-selling the hobby boxes for as much as, well, sometimes over $140 to $160 per box. So still kind of very expensive for the card. But here's what's sad. So when we look back at that kind of first inaugural set that was spectacular and everybody was rushing to get it and so forth, and you're paying $5 or more for a pack of 12 cards, that if you collated and made the set, and who knows how much that would cost to get all the cards, today it can be bought for as little as $20 to $30 in a home collated set. Now there were sets that were factory made that were kind of sold in this kind of a stadium club container and so forth. Also, Topps kind of making it so we're going to be special for people who pay more. They started a club, and the mail-in Topps members only got special Stadium Club card sets, and so that continues to this day, that people who kind of belong to this club get kind of first dibs on getting special Stadium Club cards and autographs, and so forth. So here's a look at those cards. As I said, there were 600 cards in a collector's set. And these are the most valuable stadium cards at the time. So 1991, they were extremely valuable. And of course, the price has gone down because people realize, wow, there's just many, many of these out there. And they sell for a lot less than they originally came out. But they still hold interest. And if you look at the cards, and why are they more interesting, not only because of the photography, but they're kind of the neat settings and action and so forth. So you see Ken Griffey in the dugout, you see action of Ricky Henderson and Bo Jackson and Mark McGwire and Mattingly and Brett at the bat. And then you see kind of those intense expressions by Barry Bonds and the expression by Tony Gwynn. So these were the top selling stars. But when we look at rookies, well, there was a lot of speculation, of course, back in 1991, and there were several rookies that if they became the stars, this would be the card to have for them as rookies. And really the only one that probably panned out was Jeff Bagwell. Now, there were other potential rookies, for example, as we talk about all the time, Manny Ramirez and Jason Galbi, but they never really made it to the Hall of Fame. So popular at that time in speculation, but not so popular today. And then you had a real star coming up because he was just fantastic in his initial debut, and that was David Justice. And Luis Gonzalez got a lot of recognition for his play as a rookie, could have had a lot of potential in terms of selling. And then you had these stars that, yes, people were after them in the Stadium Club deck as the rookie of the Stadium Club deck, but they had already come out in the 1990 and even before sets. So really, they don't stand as a rookie card, so to speak, because there were cards produced before them. And then there's a very unique card of Nolan Ryan that was kind of popular to collect at the time of the 1991 Stadium, where he's wearing a tux and pitching, and kind of became the figurehead card of this particular set. So as time went on, you had all these cards now coming out again, starting in 2013, 14, and now available 2021, 2022, pre-selling these sets. Again, kind of very interesting pictures. And as you see in Mark McGwire, and kind of an action photo of Mookie Betts. Then you have a current star, Ronald Kemp, more than just a standard photo where he's kind of joking on the field, and then a kind of a special card where it talks about his warp speed, and then you have future star potential in Fernando Tatis as well as Vladimir Guerrero. Certainly in the year 2022, Shohei Ohtani did some amazing things, and his card value is soaring. But again, will it hold is a question. You certainly had Jacob deGrom and the Mets and their incredible pitching staff, as well as a new star on the way with Juan Soto, and the ultimate star of kind of in the last 3 years has been Aaron Judge, and here he is even on a card posing with previous stars of the Yankees, Reggie Jackson and Derek Jeter. So that it's unfortunate, but it kind of shows you what happened over the period of collecting in the 90s, where you had an incredible card with incredible potential, but so many were sold and the players didn't come out to be the stars that were they were projected to be. So the card values are really not that high unless someone is specifically looking for them. The sets are not that high, but a really fun card to collect and a nice card to have in your collection is the Stadium Club cards as they stand. So what I would like to say is, if you are interested in learning additional information about the baseball card manufacturers or collecting cards for fun and profit, be sure to follow us below. Hit the subscribe button and feel free to view our library of YouTube videos. Also, check out our eBay store, where we have available for sale many of the cards shown in these videos. So signing off for now, and you all just take the rest of the day off.